I want to start this one differently because these 5 are not rules. Nobody will stop you at a checkpoint for any of them. There is no sign at the airport warning you about a single one. They are decisions, small ones, made weeks before you ever leave the house, and every one of them is the kind of decision that looks perfectly sensible at the time and turns expensive later. And the reason they hit older travelers hardest is not that older travelers are less capable, it is the opposite. It is that these 5 mistakes all punish the same thing, which is having less slack in your day than you used to. When you are 30, a tight connection is an inconvenience, and you run. When you are 70, the same tight connection is a missed flight, a night in an airport hotel, and a whole day gone. The mistake was identical. The consequence was not. So here are the 5 I would never make, the reasoning behind each one, and what I would do instead. Number 1 costs older travelers more money than every other mistake on this list combined, and number 4 is the one I think is genuinely dangerous rather than just expensive. Let me start with the money. Number 1, I would never book the tightest connection on the screen. When you search for a flight, the booking site sorts by price and by total travel time. What it does not do is tell you whether the connection is realistic. A 45-minute connection at a large hub will appear on your screen as a legal bookable itinerary. The airline sold it, the computer approved it, and it can still be close to undoable. Here is what a 45-minute connection actually asks of you. The aircraft has to arrive on time. You have to get off, and if you are in row 26, you are not getting off first. You have to cross a terminal that may be a mile long. You may have to take a train between concourses, and you have to arrive at the new gate before it closes, which is usually 10 to 15 minutes before departure. Not at departure. Anything at all going slightly wrong eats the entire margin. So here is my rule, and I do not bend it. 90 minutes minimum for a domestic connection. 2 hours if it is a big hub, 3 hours if I am connecting from an international arrival, because you have to clear immigration and customs and recheck your bag, and that alone can take an hour on a bad day. Yes, it costs more, sometimes considerably more, and it is still the cheapest insurance you will ever buy, because a missed connection costs you a hotel, a meal, a rebooking, and a day. The extra $100 at booking is not the expensive option, it is the discount. There is a second half to this that matters just as much and gets almost no attention. Book both legs on a single ticket, with one airline or with airlines that partner together, not 2 separate tickets that happen to line up nicely on the same afternoon. 2 separate tickets look identical to you on the calendar, and they are completely different in law. On one ticket, if the first flight is late and you miss the second, the airline owns the problem. They rebook you at no cost, and if the delay is long enough, they cover a hotel. On 2 separate tickets, the second airline has no relationship with the first. You simply did not turn up for a flight you paid for. They owe you nothing, and buying a new seat that afternoon at the counter is the single most expensive way to buy air travel there is. Booking sites will happily assemble 2 separate tickets into one search result and show you a price that beats everything else on the page. That price is not a bargain, it is a transfer of risk, and you are the one being handed it. If a fare looks unusually good, look for the words "separate tickets" and look at whether the same airline appears on both legs. Number 2, I would never fly the last flight of the day. This one sounds like a small preference, and it is not, it is structural. If you are on the 2 in the afternoon flight and it cancels, there are still flights after it. The airline can put you on 1. You get home late and annoyed. If you are on the last flight of the day and it cancels, there is nothing after it. The next available seat is tomorrow, and tomorrow is already full of people who booked it as their first choice. Now think about the layers underneath that. Delays compound through the day, because the aircraft flying your evening flight has already done 3 legs and inherited every delay from all of them. Morning flights are flown by planes that slept at the airport. That is why the first flight of the day has by far the best on-time record, and the last has the worst. And there is a second reason that matters more as you get older. If something does go wrong at 8 in the evening, you are solving it tired. Finding a hotel, standing in a rebooking line, retrieving a bag, all of it is harder at the end of a long day than it is at 10 in the morning. I fly early, always, even though I do not enjoy the alarm clock, and I have never once regretted it. And while we are here, the same logic applies to the day of the week and the time of year. Sunday evenings and Monday mornings are the busiest business travel windows in the country, which means the fullest aircraft and the fewest empty seats to rebook you into when something goes wrong. Midweek is quieter, cheaper, and considerably more forgiving. Weather matters too, and not in the way people assume. It is not only the weather where you are. Your aircraft is arriving from somewhere else, and a thunderstorm 2 states away can delay a flight departing under a clear blue sky. If you are flying through a hub in the summer thunderstorm season or through the northern half of the country in deep winter, the morning departure is not a preference. It is a strategy. None of this requires you to become an expert in weather patterns. It just means that when you have a choice between the 9 in the morning flight and the 6 in the evening flight for roughly the same money, the choice is not really about your preferred wake-up time. It is about how many second chances you would like to have. Number 3. I would never let my medication out of my sight. I have said this in other videos and I will keep saying it because it is the one that turns a bad day into a genuinely serious one. Medication goes in the cabin, not in the checked bag ever. Checked bags are delayed and misrouted more often than people realize, and the cargo hold gets cold enough to damage insulin and certain injectables. If your suitcase goes to a different city, missing clothes is an inconvenience you can solve with a store. Missing a week of heart or blood pressure medication in an unfamiliar town, possibly on a weekend with no local doctor who knows you, is a different category of problem entirely. And take more than you need. If the trip is 7 days, carry 10 days worth. Delays happen and weather happens. The extra 3 days weigh nothing and they turn a canceled flight into a mild irritation instead of an emergency. There is a variation on this mistake that is subtler, and I see it constantly. Splitting the medication between 2 bags so that if one goes missing, you still have some. The instinct is sound. The execution usually is not, because what people actually do is put the morning pills in one bag and the evening pills in the other. Now losing either bag costs you half your regimen. If you are going to split it properly, a full course in the cabin, and a duplicate partial supply in the checked bag as a backup. The cabin bag is the primary, the checked bag is the spare tire, not 2 halves of the same wheel. If this is useful, a like helps this channel enormously, and I read every comment. Number 4. I would never sit still for 4 hours. This is the one I said was genuinely dangerous rather than expensive, and I want to be careful and accurate about it rather than dramatic. Sitting motionless for long periods slows the circulation in your legs. On long flights, this raises the risk of a blood clot forming in a deep vein, and that risk rises with age, with recent surgery, and with a few other conditions. This is well documented, and it is the reason airlines put those exercises in the seatback magazine that nobody reads. It is also very manageable, and that is the point I want to land. Get up once an hour and walk the aisle even just to the back and return. Book an aisle seat so that getting up does not require negotiating with 2 strangers. Flex your ankles and roll your feet while seated. Drink water and go easy on alcohol, because dehydration does not help. And if you have had recent surgery, a previous clot, or you are simply not sure, ask your doctor before a long flight whether compression stockings make sense for you. They are inexpensive, and for many people they are a straightforward answer. None of that is difficult. The mistake is not failing to do something complicated. The mistake is settling into a window seat with a book at the start of an 8-hour flight and deciding you will not need to move. I book the aisle every time, and I would give up a view for it without a second thought. And pick your seat at the moment you book, rather than letting the system assign one at check-in. This has become considerably more important than it used to be, because most airlines now sell the basic fare without a seat assignment at all, and what you get instead is whatever is left over on the day. Whatever is left over is almost always a middle seat near the back. For a 2-hour hop, that is a minor annoyance. On a long flight, in a middle seat, with 2 strangers between you and the aisle, the advice I just gave you about getting up every hour quietly becomes impossible to follow. You will not do it. Nobody does. You will sit there for 6 hours because asking twice an hour feels rude. So the seat fee is not really a seat fee, it is the price of being able to stand up when you want to, and on a long flight I would pay it every single time. Number 5, I would never assume the help is not for me. This is the last one, and it is the one I feel most strongly about, because it costs people the most, and it is entirely free to fix. Every airline in the country will provide assistance from the curb to your seat if you ask for it. Somebody meets you, takes your bag, moves you through a dedicated security lane, and gets you to the gate. It costs nothing, and you arrange it when you book or by calling 48 hours ahead. If you are 75 or older, you can ask to be seated during a pat-down at security rather than standing, and if you cannot stand for the body scanner, you can request an alternative method of screening. Published procedure, not a favor. If you use a wheelchair, you can ask for it to be returned to you at the aircraft door on arrival rather than at baggage claim, which can be the difference between 15 minutes and an hour. And almost nobody asks for any of it. I know exactly why, because I have heard the same sentence from dozens of people: there is someone who needs it more than me. I understand the instinct completely, and I want to gently push back on it. That service is not a scarce resource being rationed. It is staffed and budgeted and often sitting idle. Declining it does not send it to somebody worse off. It just means you walk a mile through Atlanta with a bad knee for no reason at all. So look at what these 5 actually have in common, because it is one thing wearing 5 costumes. Every one of them is about margin. There is time margin, which is the gap you leave at a connection. There is day margin, which is choosing a departure with flights left behind it. There is supply margin, which is the extra medication in your cabin bag. There is physical margin, which is the aisle seat that lets you stand up. And there is human margin, which is the help you are entitled to and do not ask for. You are not less capable than you were at 40. You simply have less appetite for spending a whole day fixing something that a small decision 6 weeks ago would have prevented. That is not a decline. That is judgment, and it is worth using. Build margin in at the booking screen, where it costs $100, instead of at the airport, where it costs a day. Now, all 5 of these are things you control, but there is an entire category of things you do not control where an airline can legally stop you from boarding a flight you have already paid for, and most passengers have no idea how wide that authority actually goes. I went through exactly how it works in the next video, and the reasons are broader and stranger than almost anyone expects. Subscribe so it finds you, and tell me in the comments which of these 5 have you learned the hard way. I suspect number 1 has caught almost everybody at least.